firstly about the libraries and then secondly about sport. But, I think talking about the lights that you referenced, I think I saw them in London a couple of weeks ago, and seeing them in Thornton Heath, they looked even better up close and personal. And one point that you raised about the Representation of the People Act, I do look forward to seeing the borough not only taking that on, but taking it forward and really supporting what's been going on at Sadiq's level with the Behind Every Great City campaign, particularly now we've got a female MP in the borough. On the library service, obviously, again, you and your officers can be very proud of the work that you've done to bring that in-house smoothly and quickly. I know there was reference to Carillion's considerable debts. What was the status of some of those debts? Were they small contractors within the borough? And what is the council's relationship with them and ensuring that those services are able to continue? I think being able to take back the library service in this building is fantastic, and I know obviously in May we'll be losing one of our biggest advocates for the return of the fantastic Warehouse Theatre, and could we look at this as a potential venue for bringing it back and ensuring a fuller legacy to studio theatre in the borough? And again, on this space, I know something that was dear to this committee's heart a couple of years ago with the loss of the sorting office and the collection point. Is that something that we're going to look to start up conversations with Royal Mail to try and make the most of this facility and get that collection point back in the heart of the town in our library?
I've been asked about swimming pools in the town centre, but never collection points for Royal Mail. But we have Amazon lockers, which Carillion were paid for, so they've got to repay us for, if they stay in our libraries. Finances, Carillion, of course, were a council-preferred supplier until last year, which meant that we paid them 6 months ahead of time and gave them a discount, or they gave us a discount for so doing. It's something which I opposed with Carillion for a long time, because if anyone reads the FT, you'll know that Carillion had been short-sold their stock since 2013 from paying their suppliers very late, 120 days plus. So they've been a risky outfit for a very long time, and I've been very much aware that putting our staff in their hands for the last 3 years hasn't been acceptable in my view. But how we extracted them and ourselves from that position was the difficulty, and so bringing them back in-house as quickly as possible was the most logical thing to do, and which the two other boroughs still haven't done. The library services in the other two Carillion boroughs are still being run by the liquidator. As far as Stephen will be able to update fully, but as far as I understand, it's only the news agents and things locally which are owed money, and the team are looking in to sort that one out. If I ask Stephen just to update on that technical point first.
Okay, in terms of the suppliers and the debt associated with that, we are working with PwC, who are working on behalf of the liquidators, to give us information around that. We're still waiting for that information to come through. What we've done locally is have a look through all of those suppliers and start to get a picture across all of that. It's still incomplete at this moment in time. We're going to carry on working on it. We're taking a two-pronged approach, so we're focusing on some of the smaller businesses that will be affected by non-payment, so the news agents and other small businesses, and those particularly within Croydon. And what we're doing is we're putting a package around that in terms of the additional support we can provide to each of those.
Thank you, Stephen. And on your final point about the Warehouse Theatre, I think the whole offer is needed once again in the town, particularly a growing borough. The Warehouse Theatre's peer theatres, the Tricycle, Almeida and Bush, and there's a hole in South London for professional small-scale theatre. And it's something which was always very popular, particularly with local people, so it was a local service. The Fairfield is very much both local and regional. Its reach has always been significant, whereas the Warehouse Theatre was particularly good at talking to local communities, but on a professional scale. The theatre ecology of Croydon and South London, I think, is missing that key piece of of infrastructure, and there are still opportunities for the offspring of the warehouse theatre in the future. I think there are some good opportunities to work with Savvy Theatre, Tallowa, who's a leading black theatre company, but the local spoke of producing a new writing theatre that is edgy and engaging, I think is very much needed, and a town not to have that, and to be able to work with the training side of theatre. So we have the Brit School, we have Croydon College, who do lots of technical courses, and there's nowhere for them to actually practice or develop their craft. So I think it's quite important that the town thinks about that seriously going forward.
Thank you for that, Timothy, and obviously some very important points, particularly about the upcoming theatre productions. Moving on to sport, obviously, the GLL contract is hopefully going to be a fantastic opportunity for this town and a breath of fresh air. Sort of 2 points here. Firstly, we're starting to see across the country the wave of budget gyms, with about 2 or 3 opening in the town centre. How are we going to look to compete with that market and be able to provide those offers, particularly where our gym facilities are in areas where they are not operating at present? And I think that's a good sort of area of the market to try and seize. And secondly and finally, obviously it's a sport dear to my heart of cricket. In this borough, particularly over the last 5 to 10 years, we've started to see a significant decline in the quality of cricket within the borough, both in terms of the playing facilities, in terms of the league standards, with 3 or 4 clubs being regularly relegated down the leagues. The main club for the north of the borough now being where I play, over the border in Sutton at Beddington, and because of the lack of a strong offer in the borough, and being one of the largest South Asian community populations and the largest borough, surely there is no excuse. And as a borough, we need to do better with Surrey to try and get back the Mark Butchers into the England squad from Croydon.
Absolutely. It is an area which I get lobbied on regularly, actually, from all different perspectives, from community groups that actually just want to run their own pitch and find the council doesn't really talk to them properly, to those sort of bigger club issues about supporting growth and recruitment. Steve Ashley, I don't know if you want to contribute on that, and also on the gym issue.
Yes, thank you, Chair. With regards to budget gyms, and it's obviously, like you said, it's a trend that is not going away. There's pluses and minuses, so it's not for everybody, which is the bonus. And I think the more that are cropping up, the more issues they're having in terms of being able to control what the users want. And that's, people are trying it, it's not for them, and they're moving back. So I think from that point of view, the market is finding that there is an initial drift, but they do get a percentage of return back into the service. That said, they are all part of what we've looked at in terms of the new contract is not just providing the traditional what everyone's had before. So it's much further afield. So looking at the outdoor spaces, the health interventions, the other sort of programmes that are on the table with Silverfit, with the grey markets, and our parks with the activities that are there, and engage in a much wider section of the community, and different pathways where they wouldn't ordinarily go to a gym or a leisure centre anyway. So it's the diversification of that service and the opportunities to be more physically active. It may be benefits to mental health and the social interaction, and the sport and the activity that they do is secondary. So the actual benefit they're getting is actually participating in something with somebody, maybe for the only time that week. So that's the key. So it's a bigger picture as opposed to an isolated area. That will also couple itself with marketing and strategies, pricing plans, etc., to also counter some of those more aggressive targeting from the other sectors. So it's a combination of everything. They're across it in terms of, they've got other facilities elsewhere. They're already talking, GLL talking to us about, potential future developments with the cultural sector and the commercial sectors. So, new units coming in and looking at some of their other brandings, be better brands and better gyms, etc., that could potentially crop up in years to come, which would improve the overall position. So it's a whole mix of that. If I just pick up on the cricket as well, part of the playing field strategy that sort of Stephen's team have put together, one of the things on there is that sort of ECB have also looked at areas around the borough where potentially sort of recreational and informal cricket can take place, and that's something that we've built into the GLL programme. So picking up on your point exactly, things like last man stand, quick cricket, tape ball, that type of thing, where it's huge. And I've sort of come from sort of East London areas, and where I've developed that really well with Essex cricket, and it's something that they're quite keen to do. So part of the bid for that is to start looking at those, working with the corporate sector, leagues, etc., from that point of view, and start the ball rolling, excuse the pun. But that's the type of thing that we're looking at to work with partners for that over the coming years.
I think it's quite important as well to understand it does always take two to tango. So, we haven't had a contractor in place who's been able to have those conversations on the wider agenda of sport development and use of facilities. But it also requires planning officers, development colleagues to actually be taking those opportunities seriously. So, when they're talking about a big Westfield, what's the sporting offer? Are they actually talking about a proper swimming pool operated by our contractor, which will have public access? Or are they talking about a private gym looking for the premium? That's a conversation which takes years. It's not one which takes weeks or months. So that's about the whole authority taking its role seriously. And I think it is now. But the pressure has to be kept up to ensure that every opportunity is looked at to feed into publicly accessible facilities.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I have a couple of points I want to raise. Firstly, around libraries. I mean, yesterday and today, you made a great virtue of the fact that you've taken back the library service in-house. I just want to try to understand: is this purely a sort of an ideologically driven thing, or was it where you oppose sort of the use of the private sector in delivering public services, or was it actually as bad as you make it out to be when Carillion were running it? Purely because some of your indicators seem to suggest that things were not as bad as they seem to be in terms of your increase in the number of online visits and on targets in terms of the number of visits and all that. So I'm just trying to understand what Carillion were really doing wrong, and how, now that you've taken it back in-house, what are you going to do differently to deliver a better service?
Thank you, Billy. It is, I think it comes down to ambition. Because when you look at the reports from the other boroughs, they've said that Carillion were okay. I don't think they're okay if you want to have an integrated offer right across every community in the borough. They are, as I said last night, 13 front doors for every community. And actually, those staff need to be trained right across the council so they understand every sort of initiative, signposting, etc. What we've ended up with is very much a deprofessionalised service, and one that isn't led by the frontline staff. It's run by contract managers. And actually what you want is proper librarians who understand their specialist areas. What sort of world is it that we don't have a full-time children's librarian in this borough with the largest youth population? And I said last night about having a storyteller. Actually, being able to connect communities through the library programme. It's in Barking Dagenham, they've had some very good workshops being run by their council and funded by the Arts Council about storytelling, about writing books, and actually, some of that work we should be leading on. And I think some of the figures are slightly misleading in Croydon, in that they represent a growing population. We've seen huge population growth. And it is new communities that need libraries. It is people at key life stages of children, of retirement, of moving home that need a library. And actually, if you go into a library and look at the book stock, it isn't acceptable that our travel books are basically a historical section. Libraries should basically throw out their travel books after 18 months. And I doubt there's that many in your local branch that are younger than 18 months. Most of them are older. And it's that sort of issue, alongside the sort of in-depth investment in jobs, in advice, in IT training, and using all of those locations for all of the different council priorities that we have. We all talk about, IT and training, but actually we've got these centres right across the borough that most of them are shut 3 days a week. So it's also about devolving and saying to staff, the local library, actually, the home book service is really important because actually it's about befriending people, about loneliness, about all those sort of things that we talk about, and actually they're ideal opportunities to engage volunteers to deliver those services from a branch perspective. So we start building up local branches as actual real community hubs. From my point of view, it's about ensuring that that's connected. You can't have that level of connection if you're using a company that's seeking to maximise its profit. This is about ethos of public services, and that's why our administration won't be putting that library service back out to the private sector. And I think that's something which the public is very much understanding and supportive of.
Yeah, thank you for that. My second point is really around Fairfield Halls. Can you tell us when exactly Fairfield Halls is actually going to open? Because we've been told that it's going to be done in a phased manner. So when will the first phase open, whatever that means? And when will the entire facility be finally open, as a fully functioning facility, as we all know it to be? So what is this? When is the start of the opening, and when is this phased opening going to end?
So the opening programme is in the hands of BH Live. The phased handover of what parts of the building are ready, it starts in November, with full handover in January of every single part. And that will mean that once the contractor has bottomed out the very last piece and the last date, that BH Live will be able to programme and be able to formally announce their full opening programme as soon as possible after that point. So that's the position we are at the moment.
Sorry, I just trying to clarify. So there is going to be a phased opening, as Paula told us in the last scrutiny when the same question was raised, that you're not going to have this one big bang opening, but it is going to be in a phased manner. Is that correct?
When the halls opened, it was a whole range of opening activities and testing of the acoustics for the classical programme through to the theatre, and I expect something very similar from BH Live, so that they use that first 6 months in particular to showcase a new facility and then have a really a normal full programme in the usual manner following that. So it's a handover to BH Live as soon as the venue's available. Remember, this is a huge venue. You've got an 800-seater theatre, you've got almost a 2,000-seat concert, you've got a studio, you've got a 700-seater standing venue in the Arnhem, you've got the smaller studio at the back. It's a considerable place to programme and a challenge for anyone. So, trying to split hairs about when things will be open, there won't be a day when the entire venue's full, and that was never ever going to be the case anyway.
Thank you, Chair. Tim, what difference will it make, if any, if we don't get the London Borough of Culture? If
we don't get it, I think there's a real possibility we will get it. And then the exemplar projects that flow under it, I think there's an even stronger chance of getting. I don't think that's a scenario that we're contemplating at all. But the impact of not getting it, the impacts are entirely positive in terms of all the work that Paula and the team have been doing in terms of connecting people in the planning processes. And there are projects that will take place anyway. Some of those commercial relationships that have been forged from it will still continue. Paula?
Yeah, I mean, those are exactly the things we're looking at the moment to maximise all the work that we've done. We are in the top 5. I think we would, you know, it would be unlucky if we didn't get something from it. But undoubtedly, without that title and the boost of that title, all of the things that we want to do, I think, will take a bit longer. They're not different things, it's just it will take longer. What we're looking at the moment is if we don't get the title, and of course the £1 million that comes with it, and other funding as well, we think that probably about a third of the programme we could hang on to and shape into, you know, the alternative Borough of Culture programme over the same sort of period of time. If we were to get one of the runner-up prizes, that's still about £250,000 for a very significant project, and ours is a 3-day festival project in Fairfield Halls. So if we were to get that, then that's a very sort of significant gem to shape the rest of a project around. And I think certainly the sponsors that have already signed up, I think would probably stay with us. So it would particularly affect the pace of what we could do, and it would be very disappointing. But I mean, there are 22 boroughs that have gone for it, and I know that there are some good bids. I've heard that. I've also heard feedback, informal feedback, that our bid is good, but there are a lot of other strong bids as well.
The Evening Standard said we were going to be in for a chance because the mayor used to date his wife here to go and see films. So I thought that was quite a positive. I'm taking it as a key indicator. No? Yeah, no, as Paula has just reminded me, that the announcement's on the 27th. So you'll have to feed it in February. So it's just around the corner.
Thank you. Could we have an update on Box Park? I hear people going there and it's virtually closed, or is sometimes closed.
That'd be for Mark.
Yeah. That's not you. Okay.
No, we don't need to go any further for that.
Okay, that's fine then. Yeah.
The cultural part of funding does come through Paula in terms of some of the events programme, but it might be easier to just do it all with Mark later.
Okay. The other point I want to make was Ashburton Hall. It doesn't seem to be open when people have been there. They said there's building works and things at the back, and there's nothing to do. So could you have an update on that, please?
I only took out the publicity leaflet from the interim offer, which is quite impressive, where they've got open days and all sorts of things taking place. So the handover of that takes place on the 1st of March to Greenwich Leisure, and they will then be investing in the building as well with us. So the full programme will become, I think, very clear once GLL take over. I know GLL are very excited about having such fantastic park and hall working together, and you know, I do think that when that works, it'll be quite useful to look at other opportunities across the borough for similar sort of bases and general activity. Actually, if you could outline some of the sporting offer, I think that's quite detailed and exciting.
Yes, thank you. Obviously, we said GLL are picking up Ashburton Hall, but also elements of the park as well. So there's infrastructure around the tennis and mugger areas, which are going to be revamped and improved. Having a base there, small changing facility, cafe, enables a much wider part of activity to go on. There's an outdoor gym that will go in there as well, which is which their support with programs. There's an adventure outdoor. It's an inflatable assault course, a bit like the sort of Tough Mudders, which can be used indoor and outdoor, but they'll be using it outdoors for sort of key fitness, along with walks and other programs as part of the Silverfit and Owl Parks. Inside, there'll be a range of sort of cultural and sort of sporting activities, yoga, sort of low-impact sessions, junior section for a sort of playground outside, and sort of creche and activity centres for people. So there's a whole variety of things. They're looking at investing into the what is the sort of the grandstand or the outdoor bandstand there, but using that for sort of cultural things, like poets' corners, might be sort of small musical events and showcasing things. So they've really looked at the whole operation and how it can be regenerised and revitalised the area there. So it'd be a full programme. We're also working with the existing sort of group that are in at the moment, so they're sharing the inquiries with GLL and looking at how they can be taken on either on a long-term basis, or if they don't quite fit the future ones, where they can be sort of moved to, or how they can be accommodated. So there's a level of that as terms of programming as well. And like I said, there's some investment that's going into the site, so the cafe area will be fitted out and upgraded for people to use, and sort of rooms and ancillary areas, etc. as well. So there's quite a significant amount of investment that's going into the site.
And I was delighted really when the council's previous arrangements fell through with the previous operator, because I think this does offer genuine, stronger community offer and availability, which I think was limited in the previous arrangement. So long term, it's I think great news for the wider area to offer better facilities. And GLL will be operating the nursery offer there themselves as well, which they're experienced in elsewhere. So it will be, I think, a very strong offer. Yes, that's the handover, and that's when they start to ramp up their offer.
Can I just say the building is currently fully open, albeit in reduced hours, and we're having a very impressive London Mozart player concert there. Do come along. It is fully open.
My two last questions. On your presentation, Tim, you've helpfully got past successes, priorities for the next 12 months, and then delivering our ambitions. I wonder if you could distill that, certainly the middle and the third columns, into what would be the top priorities across your portfolio as you would see it as of today, priorities over the next 2 or 3 years? Perhaps in terms of the challenges or the biggest problems to be tackled over the next 2 or 3 years.
Parks still is I think the biggest challenge, to ensure that we start an investment programme that starts to fix some of those long-term issues. We all know that the huge amount of money that is needed to fix potholes, but actually quantifying what investment is actually needed in all of our parks right across the borough, and how to transform those for the larger number of residents we have, and to then be able to start to look at planning for new uses like street lighting in specific parks and things. So a lot of preparatory work's been done, but it's about taking it to the next level, ensuring that events work seamlessly, generate income, but also respect the park and the local community.
Maybe a similar answer, or it may not. What advice would you give your successor as to what achievements or quick wins he or she should aim at over the next 2 or 3 years?
I think quick wins are really very hard in a local authority. Local authority is like a fleet of oil tankers that takes a very long time to change direction or speed. And it is, I think, one of the most frustrating things for officers as well as members is how slow it sometimes takes to get the change that you're seeking. Seeking ways of getting there quicker, I think, is the sort of the quick wins we actually need is to truncate timetables and decision making to be as short as possible.
Patsy?
I'll be very brief. Councillor Godfrey, I think, I know the Chair's probably likely to sum this up, but I think you've done a tremendous job over the time that you've taken on this role. Right through to the South Norwood Library, which we're really excited about, to Fairfield Hall. I think it's going to be a tremendous space. It's going to be hopefully the first or the second destination for all of culture in our town. I think we should be proud of that. I just love the devolution that's happening in South Norwood and Thornton Heath and other district centres. Just wondered how that might roll out to the other district centres. I know funding is a big issue for that, but that'd be nice to see. And just one other point, when we think about sport and things that we're going to do to develop our town to encourage young people, don't forget ladies' sports, please. We're not all into football or cricket.
No, absolutely. Devolution, I think it has huge legs. The devolution that Stephen and his team's been working on, I think could include green spaces, parks, libraries. Councils do take it to the next level altogether with town managers who manage the environmental teams and all sorts of things. But I think there's a natural connection between libraries, district centres, and green spaces, and there are learning and training opportunities that could be ploughed into that. So with the ending of the ID Verdi contract, I think that's a huge opportunity to look at how we use the maintenance staff, the grounds staff to change how we operate that service and how we manage that. I think needs serious discussion and manifesto pledges. Yes, but it is about feeding in. It's also about the council ensuring that we have the right officers in place to drive that agenda forward. I think we have a far stronger staffing structure than we have done in this area, but that needs to be preserved and protected going forward, and that's very difficult with government cuts continuing to bite.
And to be honest, when we looked at it under children and young people, it was quite clear that schools have a major role in what sports they offer for women and girls, because, as you said, they have a range of sports that are traditionally offered in schools that may not be that attractive. Okay, Helen.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to thank the Cabinet member for the presentation and say I completely agree that parks are the biggest challenge. I think there's an awful lot to be done there. And I share your frustration on how long it takes them to get anything done. And obviously when I'm Cabinet member, those are some of the quick wins I'll be working on in May. Right. Obviously I've got loads of questions, but I'm going to try and summarise, and I think some of the things have already been covered. So if I could I think there's 3 areas, just so that you know. You mentioned in the libraries that you're going to trial new models of delivery and support wider community use and partnerships. I'll be interested to know a little bit more about what exactly that means. And then on arts and culture, I very much enjoyed the Light Festival at the weekend. I'd like to congratulate everyone involved with that. I particularly liked the mouse. I think the National Trust thing was very good, and I think that was great. I've obviously got a lot of questions about Fairfield Halls, but I think to a certain extent you've covered those. If you could clarify my understanding of what you've said, that it'll sort of be handed over from November till January. There'll be roughly 6 months of opening and getting the hang of it. So from what you said, it doesn't sound like any programme will be announced until January. I don't know if I've misunderstood that. And then the real programme will kick in 6 months later. Perhaps you can clarify that. On parks and open spaces, couple of observations. I noticed in the corporate plan, and I know it's not been presented today, but I've noticed that the target number of volunteer hours has gone down. And I'm also wondering, is that right? And also, how do you encourage volunteer hours? What are you actually doing on that? On the parks generally, you've said in your priorities for the next 12 months that you want to increase the number of people using the parks. And I've asked, but you don't know how many people use the parks. And I've asked the question, so how can you tell if you succeeded in that? And are you relying entirely on people attending park events? And I don't really think that is perhaps a justifiable measure. I think you actually need to have a better handle so that if you do achieve it, at least you'll know you've done it. And otherwise, you could just be chucking money down a hole and not know if it's made any difference. And my last point is on the interminable amount of consultation that's been going on about parks. When are we going to get the outcome of the master planning exercises? And because it was due by tomorrow, unless you're going to surprise me today or tomorrow. And then from what... Oh, all right, fine, okay. I thought it was going to be big announcements at the Parks meeting tonight, which neither of us are at, but either way. Then, once we've got these long-awaited master plans, what have you put in place for delivering it? Now, I mean, I know there's 106 money waiting for some parks. How is that going to be released? Who's actually going to be doing that? Because when I last asked this, there was no staff. You're going to say, once we've got the master plans, we'll find out what staffing requirements we've got. But we know we're going to need staff to implement the master plan, so why is that not in place now? So, sorry, was that too long?
Going backwards, I think the master plans are an important tool. They are, from my point of view, about getting some of that 1.6 million quid that's sitting in Section 106 and has sat there for, 10 years, 15 years in some cases. You know, it's appalling that that money hasn't been spent, and the rollout of that needs to happen. So part of the master plans should enable some of that money to be accessed and quite quickly for those significant improvements. And the staffing structure, because this is now the second staffing structure, there was one 4 years ago, which I think made matters worse. And then this current one, which is about enabling projects to be delivered, I think, more effectively and efficiently. So there's specific staffing resource, and I think Stephen can talk through that properly, and when it's all being published. If Stephen would like to just confirm those points.
So in terms of the Parks Master Plans, they should be out during February. I can give you the exact date after this meeting. In terms of the staff structure is in place, and the idea around that is about facilitating these different projects. I think part of the challenge we've had in the past is that we haven't had the resources to do that. I've been working across the regeneration teams to create that resource, and you've seen a number of projects come forward from that. So it sits across, it's in Active Lifestyles team. But it also sits across the wider regeneration team. So what we've done is we're working across different disciplines to deliver different projects in parks.
I think one of the issues from the public's point of view is that all these structures are very confusing, and how parks is delivered by, FM, basically, Stephen Tate's team, Stephen Isles' team, etc. And I've always been a strong believer that public services should have professionals who head up those services and be identifiable. So I still believe that we should have a head of parks who can actually be the person who people can go to and be the signpost and be responsible for all of these projects. The senior management of the council know my views on that, but this is a structure that we're currently working with. Parks and open spaces, in terms of numbers, you know, when we get these numbers sheets, you know, half the time, you know, what do they actually mean? I'm not a big fan of having loads and loads of measures. I think some core things about how the look and feel of parks, the number of volunteer groups, they're important things to measure, and not the total number of users. But I mean, there are health metrics. There are all sorts of different places where you can get data on park users. The issue you raised about volunteers going down in the corporate plan, I wasn't aware of. But I don't think Stephen Tate was aware of it. But that can be looked at as well. But it is about getting more people to partner with us, and I think that's why designing the new way forward once ID Verdi are exited will be very important, because actually we've got a staffing resource that looks after the contractor. There's management within the contractor as well, and actually they need to be engaging directly with residents groups, friends groups, and they all need to be involved as well in the design of that service. So it can't be a top-down design. It needs to be something which we consult on, because this is something which affects every park and open space in the borough. Then moving on to your questions about the Fairfield. So any arts centre operates, in essence, their programme across the academic year, so September to June or July. Traditionally, you have a dark period in August. So I'd expect the BH Live operate in exactly the same way as that. So as soon as we have confirmation of when the full handover of every part of the building will be, BH Live will then be able to programme an interim programme through till they start their full year's programme. And that would be quite normal with all of the promoters and production companies that they regularly deal with at their other sites as well. It is important that Fairfield's open as soon as possible, because actually that will enable us to book in community groups and the BH Live to be able to book in that interim programme from opening onwards, which will be quite an attractive offer for organisations to come down to be one of the first productions in a significantly improved venue. And the other points, I think, were just, have I missed, or were they just comments? But the National Trust work, I think, is very good on the urban scale, and the Light Festival is continuing for the next couple of years.
I'm conscious of time. Can you just, there'll be no further questions, but have you got an update?
Yes, I just wanted to add to that the park side, as part of the GLL contracts, they've partnered up with two sort of quite significant partners in our parks and Silverfit, and part of that they will be delivering sort of 20 hours a week of exercise classes and other activity through the Our Parks programme for free activity across parks in the borough, as well with Silverfit. They've also got park activators that will be working within those areas, who will start to sort of gather data around sort of people that are using the parks, different interventions with people as well, and on top of that a volunteer hub as well, sort of developing volunteer opportunities within the parks areas and across the borough for different sporting events. And again, partners with LTA with other investments, so we're looking at 300 hours plus of free tennis activity on top of the other programmed activities as well. So there's quite a significant piece of outdoor leisure and sports activity planned within the contract on top of what's being developed with that.
Thank you. I just want to thank you for officers and for Timothy coming tonight. Just want to put on record our appreciation for you coming here tonight, but over the last 4 years, and also in your previous capacity, both as an opposition spokesperson, but also as one of the scrutiny chairs, very successful scrutiny chairs in a previous administration. And so, I mean, you've obviously got another 2 or 3 months on the council left. But as I said, I think this is opportunities. I'm sure that that will be endorsed by everyone here along those lines. Welcome, Mark, to this question time. So if you want to start with your presentation when the lights goes down and the people are out, and then we'll shoot through it.
Okay, I'll go through this quicker than I actually intended. And I do apologise that Emma couldn't join us here, so I am, you see, very much on my own here, so you'll have to forgive that. So very quickly, going on to where we are sort of in jobs and economy. And I think, you know, Croydon has seen a 2% growth in number of jobs from 2015 to 16. And that is very comparable to both London and national averages. And the number of businesses is increasing. We've had a 7% growth in the number of businesses from 2016 to 2017. We've been consistently higher, higher than the London average and England averages since 2015. So we're doing very well in creating new businesses here. Obviously, there's been an increase in construction jobs in the borough, which you would expect, but our highest number of new jobs is actually in the professional, scientific and technical fields. So we are attracting you know, more professional jobs into Croydon as well. 99% of our businesses in Croydon are small businesses and yeah, small and medium-sized enterprises. And the survival rate at 5 years is 44.2%, which compares favourably to the London average of 41.7 and England at 44. So the survival rate of businesses in Croydon is also better than the rest of the country. There are challenges facing businesses. The botched re-evaluation of business rates that the government brought in has had a big impact on businesses, especially town centres and district centres, where those rates went up much higher than the rest of the country. The pension auto-enrolment, which I think is a good thing, but it has been an extra burden and cost on businesses. And clearly, Brexit, in any scenario, is going to be bad for business. There isn't a scenario where Brexit actually does well for the UK, but certainly not for Croydon businesses as well. And I think it's not just the uncertainty around that. I think there's those fluctuations in the pound make it very difficult for some of their businesses. But against this background, I think we've seen you know, strong growth for businesses, and I think Croydon is in a very good position, despite those challenges, I think, to continue to attract businesses here and to grow the businesses that we have. It's not quite sure how easy it is to see some of that. Basically, Croydon residents between 16 and 64 are, who are economically active, significantly higher for London and for the rest of the country. Our unemployment rate is below the average for London, slightly above the rate for England, but we are trying to work with those people that are out of work and getting those people back into work. We're supporting a number of over 5,000 households have been supported, including care leavers. We've discretionary support for a number of homeless people. We've also helped 370 customers get back into employment, particularly those that have been furthest from the workforce and vulnerable people to get back into work through the Croydon Works, which I'll come on to later. And our gateway service is integrated very much with our Croydon Works, so we are working in a very holistic way to support our residents getting back into employment. The growth zone, obviously the growth zone is a huge chunk of money that we're getting. It's a partnership between central government, the council and the Greater London Authority and Transport for London. There are 39 infrastructure projects there to facilitate growth. The idea of the growth zone is that the government will lend us the money. In fact, we have a grant to cover the short-term interest costs of the loan, which is £7 million, and we can borrow £309 million to support the infrastructure to grow the borough. And the idea of that is the business rates that will be generated from that extra growth will be used to pay back the growth zone loan. So that money is going into projects across the borough. And we've already started doing some of that. You can see there the pedestrianisation of the High Street there is part of that. That work is ongoing. The Warhol Month was a great success and attracted many new people into the borough. The Good Evening Croydon, which is the competition to sort of support the nighttime economy, and I think Ludicrous have just won on that. And I think Ludicrous is a fantastic new venture that we have in Croydon. I think very innovative and has really turned a space that wasn't been very successful for the last two ventures into a very successful space. There's the new consultation and design round 5 ways, which will come partly from the growth zone. We've done, the growth zone is also using to fund a number of inward investment tools, including funding the Gatwick Airport and Croydon Pages in the Visit London site, and attracting new businesses into Croydon. And obviously with the extra lighting we've done there, and there's obviously Surrey Street Market, which again I shall talk more about in a moment. Sorry. Other parts of the, before I get on the box part, we also the smart cities work that we are doing across the borough, and I think there's a cabinet paper I took in December. Basically, we're connecting the borough with a better digital infrastructure to try and improve the whole digital offering we have in Croydon. Part of that is a pan-Croydon low power wide area network connectivity grid, which basically is a sort of like a mobile network that uses very low power and good for connecting devices across the borough. We're also doing work with adult social care to try and assist people for independent living through digital technology. We're putting open data out there so we can that data can be used to develop new apps and use that to support businesses. We're putting new technology in, things like how many car parking spaces are here, and to direct people to the right spaces, and use digital to better map out routes for people coming into the town. We're doing work around the Halo project, which is using digital and lighting to direct people across town. Box Park, and I know people are interested in Box Park. Obviously, Box Park has been a very exciting and innovative addition to Croydon. Between January and June 2017, they held 157 events there. 10 of the events were held in partnership with Croydon Council. We've had 420 performers. Over half of these are from Croydon, and those events attracted nearly 50,000 people over that time. I think when you talk to anybody, Box Park has been a really exciting development. People now say, oh, you can have a Box Park in Croydon. I'm talking to businesses such as the Body Shop and other businesses that are relocating to Croydon. One of the factors that have influenced their decision to move here was having Box Park here, and I think that was exciting for their staff to come here. So I think Box Park has been a great success for Croydon, and there's lots of people that I know that will travel down from London to Brighton and stop off on Box Park on the way back here. However, I am concerned about the turnover of businesses within the park. And I think part of that is to be expected. It's a new and innovative venture. A lot of the start-ups in there were new businesses, a lot of those in the food business, which is a notoriously difficult business to be start-ups in any case, and a lot of those were finding their feet. Nobody quite knew what the offer was going to be like, how it was going to be received in Croydon, so you would expect a turnover of businesses in any new venture such as that. But in the last we have lost 10 of those businesses, which is about 29% of them that are no longer trading. Now, a lot of those are very small independents, mostly start-ups. So I called Roger Wade in last week to discuss what we can do and how we can improve that. We are doing one-to-one business advice with a dedicated advisor to go round to all the units in Box Park. We are directing any that need help to the Croydon Enterprise Loan Fund to help them if they need short-term funding. I've said to a lot of the units in there, they need to look at their offer. I don't think a £10, £12 lunch offer is right. I think you need to have a £5 lunch offer for people. I think, and that's not just a Croydon thing. I think generally people don't want to be spending £10, £15 on lunch. So I think they do need to think about what their offer is, particularly for the lunchtime crowd. I have said to Roger he needs to look at the rent and the way that they are operating on that, and perhaps give some rent relief and give support to those businesses that are struggling with some rent repayment plans. I will look at discretionary rate relief for any of those businesses that need it. Rather frustratingly, I think the rates kick in at £11,000 rateable value, and I think most of them are rated at £12,000, so they're just over the edge of where they pay rates. And I think that if we can support them through the discretionary rate relief thing, we will do. We also have a whole programme of training and seminars to help them market themselves better. We will be looking at how else we can market events to Box Park and support them through the recruitment with their Croydon Works programme. So we've had an initial meeting with the CEO at Box Park, Roger. There is a follow-up meeting on that, and we have a programme to try and support those businesses that are currently there and attract new businesses into the park. Westfield, I don't think we need to say too much of that. Obviously, the revised planning consent was given and has been approved now by the Mayor. We expect them to be on site in Q1 in 2019. 50% of the jobs will be local jobs, so that's part of the 106 agreement. They've also put 1.2 million contribution for jobs and skills support for residents so they can secure those jobs. There's a £2 million contribution for the existing retail operations while the development goes ahead, and the 106 really embeds Croydon Works as the main vehicle for jobs to get those jobs for local people into Westfield. We're also working with the schools and colleges, and we have an appointment and skills board to make sure that we have the right skills for people going into those jobs. And we're encouraging all the contractors and end users to become good employers through our Good Employer Charter and to pay the London living wage. We have had a programme of supporting our district centres, and I've been around most of the district centres and met with local businesses right across the borough, from Norbury down to Coulsdon. In Thornton Heath, there is the public realm improvements around the High Street and Brigstock Road. We've done some shopfront improvements and some wall art. There has been a business support programme, again for local businesses, and Hermione and myself did a walkabout there talking to local businesses just a couple of weeks ago. In Purley, we've improved the car park there with replacement lifts and new lighting, and we've worked very closely with the Purley bid and how we can improve what's going on down there. I think they're doing a really excellent job, and I think it just shows you how important bids are to those district centres, and we absolutely do support setting up the bids, and I'm trying to work with the businesses in Coulsdon to set up a bid there as well. In New Addington and Fieldway, again, there's a very active and good bid there, but there's a new leisure centre coming in, there's a master plan proposed, and there's targeted support for the families in New Addington and Fieldway. We set up the Good Employer Charter. That was launched at the Economic Summit back in November 2016. It's a free accreditation service. We have 34 accreditations at the moment, 36 pledges to sign up. We have a range of events going on. What we're saying to all employers, to be a good employer, we want them to pay the London living wage. We want them to employ people locally, so use our Croydon Works, get local people into jobs. We want them to use our Value Croydon, so they procure locally, so businesses are supporting other businesses in Croydon, and we want them to adopt best practice in employment policy. To be the best employers that they can. I think there's been a lot of support from the businesses, and although this was set up by myself and the council, we want to hand this over to the businesses themselves to run this and carry this forward in the longer term. I think it's something that should be owned and run by businesses, and the businesses not only get the benefit of the marketing. We do give the businesses £1,000 rate relief if they sign up. I don't think that's the driver for many of them. I think being part of a network of good employers, I think, has been a real boon for a lot of these businesses, that networking and marketing on that. But, I mean, we all benefit if people are paying the London living wage. That's more money in people's pocket. That supports other businesses in the borough. If people are being employed locally, they're more likely to be on work on time, they have less travel stress, etc. It's good for the local economy, and obviously the businesses that we've got in Croydon should be buying from other businesses there and supporting those businesses. Croydon Works is one of those the things. It's very rare, I think, in politics you get something that people come up to you and tell you how wonderful it works. And I've always said that I could give out gold bars to people and they would complain that they were too heavy because most people are never happy. But in Croydon Works, literally I go around the borough and anybody that's used this service comes back and just tells me how wonderful the service is. It gets people into employment, so employers that need people can go to the service. It's a free service to use. They get good people into jobs. But Croydon Works works very closely with their gateway service to make sure we don't just get anybody into job. We are getting those people furthest from the workforce at the moment, people that are vulnerable, people that are disabled, people that have been out of work for a long time, getting those people back into local jobs into Croydon. I think we can be very proud, I think, of the work that they've done. Let me just, I've got some stats here somewhere. So currently the unit cost per job outcome is around about £1,900. So that compares with other services, which 2,000 to 5,000 would be the norm for that. But by moving local people into employment, Croydon Works makes a significant contribution to the local economy and delivers savings to the public purse. Based on current performance, it is estimated that residents who have moved off benefits by gaining employment through Croydon Works will save the public purse £593,000 and contribute £1.2 million into the local economy in their first year of employment. So the cost of setting up Croydon Works, and a lot of the cost will be coming obviously from Westfield, but getting those people off of benefits and into work is not only good for those residents, it's obviously good for our economy as well. There is a whole process of employment devolution. I'm not going to go into all the details in there, but part of that is devolution of things, work and health programme, come down to the council so we can manage those services and make sure that the services that we're offering there is better for our residents. So part of that work will be supporting residents, particularly those with disabilities and health conditions and long-term unemployed and other disadvantaged groups, into sustainable employment, where we give them individually tailored support to get back into work. Helping residents to be as independent as possible with a more integrated approach to accessing support services, and also financial independence. We have an active apprenticeship programme which launched in October 2017. There are now 30 apprentices across all departments in the council. We also offer our apprentices opportunities to study different qualifications from project management, building surveying, cultural heritage, etc. Interestingly, most of our apprentices in the 16 to 31 age bracket and represent a whole range of background. We have over 85% of BME apprentices, and I think that's fantastic, getting more people into work. And 90% of the apprentices are Croydon residents. We set up the Small Business Commission, and this we had commissioners from a range of businesses. We went out and spoke to 1,500 local businesses. We held focus groups across the borough. We did individual interviews with businesses, and we ran a number of workshops to hear what businesses wanted to do. The report was put together. I think it's something we should come back to and see how we've progressed on some of that. This was really about what are the challenges facing small businesses and how can the council help that. So the big issues that came out of that, obviously the business rates was a problem, and things like the pension enrolment, etc. That came out as a big issue for a number of the businesses. There's confusion over about accessing finance, and I think that's partly, there is some good access to finance in Croydon. I don't think it's always been signposted particularly well. Recruiting and retaining staff in Croydon was an issue, and I think Croydon Works has addressed quite a lot of that. There's a lot of business advice and support in Croydon, but a lot of businesses are not aware of that, and we're looking at what we can do that. One of the plans is that all new businesses, when they should register, will get a letter from us signposting them to both finance and business support that we offer there. The other was a sort of space, rented space that was flexible enough for small businesses. There's lots of time and money gone into tech startups and single space office space, but actually a lot of the businesses were saying they wanted that more flexible business space that they could grow into for the 2, 4, 6, 8 employees. So that was an area that we need to do more. So we have got a action plan to help address some of those issues. We have done lobbying, and I've written to the Minister about business rates, and actually there was a joint presentation with both the JLA member and Chris Philp, actually, in Purley, lobbying there, particularly where Purley was hit quite hard by those business rates. But I have written to the Minister as well, because I don't think the business rate re-evaluation was fair on Croydon or London. We've got a whole level of support and advice and guidance for accessing funding, grants and business support, which we've been rolling out. We've done a number of workshops around that. We've been looking at how we can provide more information and procurement opportunities for small businesses so they can get the benefit of procuring locally. We have the new Croydon Urban Edge, which attracts more businesses into Croydon, supports businesses coming into Croydon, and we're doing some marketing to promote Croydon as a great place to do business. We started to address the lack of appropriate office space, and we provided rate relief to the Exchange Hub, which is on Lansdowne Road, which is just opening now, which was providing that flexible office space. Obviously, we also supported the Tomorrow Hub there as well to provide flexible space for startups. So we have now the Croydon Year of Business, which we did a soft launch at the HMRC offices last week. Part of this aim of this is to say that Croydon is a place to do business. We have, grade A office space in Croydon at a fifth of the cost of central London. We are 10 minutes from London Bridge, 15 minutes from Gatwick. We are very well placed to do business, and we need to promote ourselves, I think, better across London and across the rest of the South East to show that we are the place that could do businesses. We have a real active business support programme that's supporting our small businesses. We are creating relationships and creating partnerships and relationships with other bodies such as Coast to Capital, etc., to support business development here. We have increasing our reputation as a great place to do business and for businesses to survive, and I think the Council has a very good reputation around that business engagement and communication. And I think the initiatives such as Croydon Works, the Good Employer, the Youth Congress, etc., are very attractive for new businesses coming in here. So the outcomes for our year of business, we want more improved business confidence in the borough, improved visibility of the Croydon Business Network members and their partners, improved perceptions of the town and district centres and how we support our district centres particularly, increased business pride in the local area, increased business satisfaction with the council, local economic growth and enhanced business prosperity, increased levels of inward investment in the town and district centres, improved council reputation as a result of being seen to invest and support Croydon businesses, and improved engagement with our businesses. And I think that's very important. We need to be working very closely with our businesses and listening to them. We have a number of partnerships, and I think we're making the most of those. So you talked about Croydon Works. We have a business rates relief thing where we award rate relief for businesses that are struggling. We've given out nearly £80,000 worth of rate relief already, and that has created 80 local jobs. We have the Croydon Enterprise Loan Fund, which has also created and safeguarded local jobs. We've got Urban Edge, which is the investment service for small businesses coming into Croydon. We have the Croydon Business Network, working with stakeholders to signpost advice and support to small businesses. And we've got a number of we've got a number of events coming up. On the 2nd of March, we've got the Economic Summit, and we're doing work around International Women's Day on the 7th of March. Surrey Street, we put £1.1 million worth of money into improving the market and the market area. That came from a consultation with the traders, and the things they asked us for was a levelling off of the street, making the street scene easier for people to go down the market, which we did. We created stall pitches in the actual market area itself. We provided and brought new gazebos for the traders, and that has been a very successful venture. We did have to move the market to North End. That actually worked out very well. The market traders enjoyed being on North End. We did consider keeping them on North End, but I think the logistics up there just wasn't working. And actually, since they've come back, they found that actually that the market down there is doing very well. The number of pitches being occupied has stayed fairly steady. It's around about 77% occupancy rates on those pitches. We launched a Sunday market, and that has also attracted a number of new traders. I'm just getting you some figures here somewhere. Yeah, we have 68 pitches there on a Sunday. We offer that at just £15 per pitch, and that includes electricity supply and waste disposal. And we have about 20 traders currently coming on a Sunday to do with that. We did do a consultation with local residents and visitors over August to obtain their views on what the Sunday market vision should be. We had nearly 200 responses. and they found that 50% wanted to see more street food on a Sunday, and 56% wanted to see artisan bread and vintage goods. So artisan bread seems to be very popular down there. So everybody wanted to see more stuff going on in the market, and there's been a whole programme of activities for the market over the autumn period. We had the Canada Day down there, and that attracted about 3,000 people. And I spoke to people that had come down for the Sunday market, the Canada Day Sunday market, and people had come down from Leicester to come to the Canada Day event in Surrey Street. And it was absolutely packed. There was a stall selling poutine, which I'm still not quite sure what it is, but the people were waiting nearly an hour to get that. Since then, we've also put up the lighting in Surrey Street, and that investment in Surrey Street has encouraged other investment in there. The Market Tavern refurbished and now has quite a good outside space for people to sit outside. There's a new unit next to Don's Cafe that has just opened. There is an art and craft bar being opened in the old Advertiser building, getting that unit back into use. The pet store repainted and refurbished the outside of their building in light of the work that's gone on down there. So the money that we have spent has actually encouraged the regeneration of that area of town. And also the colourful lights. We put the festoon lighting in there, which actually, even evening, and I mean, I got an email from the market manager over Christmas, and they say what a wonderful Christmas the traders had and how colourful the market was looking, both with the lights and the gazebos. Croydon's nighttime economy, we know we've gone from its heyday when we had about 30,000 people coming out on a Friday night. Those days have gone. We're now we don't quite have that number of people, but I think Box Park has certainly added a destination for people. I would like to see us to do more. We had 5 organisations put in for their competition on the evening economy. We are working with all the bar, and I go to Pub Watch regularly to talk to what the businesses there and what more we could do for that. Part of the High Street pedestrianisation came out of those meetings with the local businesses to see what more we could do, more events that we can put on, and there's a programme of events been planned to try and use that space out there to keep people in Croydon. We don't have people going out after work in the same way as other parts of London do. I think even people working in Croydon seem to go to other parts of London after work. We need to attract those people here. I think having a vibrant nighttime economy is not just good for our residents, but if we want to attract businesses into the town, we need to have a cultural offering that includes a good nighttime economy. And these are just some of the things that we've done. We had the Warhol Croydon, we've got the Thornton Heath Luminaire, we had the rooftop cinema, which has been great successful, and the Christmas lights projections that were done to get people into the town centre. So that's all I wanted to say. Happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, as Cabinet Member for Economy and Jobs, I think you all recognise that the thing that's really going to, in the long term, drive our economy, increase jobs is the Westfield Hammerson's development. And I know you did touch upon it, but the fact is we are where we were 4 years ago. I mean, we had a planning application, and 4 years, things are exactly the same. So are you able to shed light on, when this will actually happen, in terms of a bit more specific, in terms of timescales of when the works will start, when the facility will be open, because that's what residents really want to know. And also, where are we with John Lewis? Because a lot has been said over many years about bringing John Lewis into town, and where are we with that?
Well, as I said in my presentation, that and I talked to the Hammersons just on Wednesday, actually, the Chief Executive at Hammersons, talking about exactly where they are, and I think he's very confident about where they are in the whole process. They want to be on site in Q1 2019. It will be it's going to be a 2-3 year project to be done complete, so work it out from Q1 2019. Everybody is very confident. I don't think we are where we were previously. I think we made quite a lot of progress. Clearly, there were a lot of issues that had to be resolved. Brexit didn't help, I think, in part of that. Both Hammersons and Westfield have gone through mergers and acquisitions in that time. But I think everybody's very confident that the scheme is going to happen. It's going to happen start in 2019. As to John Lewis, that is something that they, Westfield and Hammerson, are in discussions with. The plan is to have an anchor store. John Lewis has been mooted as that. I don't think the scheme hangs on whether we have a John Lewis or not. Frankly, I think there's a lot that the scheme can offer without that. But I think at the moment, I think everybody is pleased that we are now. We can see we're on the home stretch, I think, and I think people are much more confident where we are, where we're progressing, and that the scheme will happen.
Thank you, Chair. See, 4 hopefully quick points. Firstly, the figures do look positive. I think it would be quite useful to see sort of a further breakdown of that data to work out how many of those jobs are quality jobs, stable jobs paying the London living wage or higher. I know that's something that's dear to our heart, but it's good to see that progress in the stats as well. I think in light of today's leak as to the billions of pounds of potential lost growth predicted under a Tory Brexit, how are you working with Croydon businesses to insulate them as best as possible for the coming storm? And obviously, I know you touched a little bit on the growth zone loan and the infrastructure, tying it into the business rates. Sort of how might that Brexit modelling that's been leaked out potentially impact on that growth zone?
Firstly, on the jobs, people in Croydon actually, on average, earn less than people working in central London. I think that's a bit of an issue. You'd probably expect some of that. In those new job growths, well, some of those jobs are in the construction industry, but some of those, as I said, the highest number of jobs being created are in those professional IT jobs, so they are well-paid jobs, and I think that's where we want to be moving Croydon, to get those better-paid jobs. We are pushing very hard on the London living wage, and any new businesses coming here, we really are expecting to pay the London living wage. We're using that all through our contractors now, and contractors as contractors, so through our own power we are pushing the London living wage out. I think you're absolutely right about Brexit. I think Brexit is a big worry. It comes up when all businesses that we're talking to, not just businesses. I was talking to Sussex University the other day because I was trying to get them to look at Croydon as a probably campus site. Universities are panicking at the moment because of the uncertainty caused by Brexit. I think basically the best outcome of Brexit is we're going to waste 5 years in this muddle, not getting on with anything else, I think. And Brexit is not going to be a success at all in any way. And I think we've seen the stats now. There isn't a Brexit scenario where we do better. Every scenario we are going to do worse. I think Croydon is in a very good place to be able to weather some of that storms. I think we're in a better place than lots of other parts of London or the country, actually. But we will be impacted on that. Now, the businesses already, those that are trading overseas, are worried about fluctuations in the currency rates, which makes it very difficult for business planning. There's the job shortage, I think, that will come as we will lose some of, Europeans will stop coming here and some will leave, and that will have an impact on our businesses. We're already seeing a drop in house prices across London, I think, as people are panicking a little bit about the impacts of Brexit. But we have a good support programme for businesses in Croydon, and we're going out talking to those businesses that might be impacted from that and giving them every support we can. And we do have a programme that's not just advice and support. The business rate relief programme we will support businesses where we can. It's much better to support businesses that are existing rather than letting them collapse. And so I think there is a lot we can do on that. But, really, at the moment, the uncertainty of Brexit, I think, is a huge worry for all businesses across Croydon.
Thank you for that, Mark. Secondly, turning to Box Park, which I know took up quite a major part of your presentation, in my recent experience, after quite a good high when it originally launched, my experience has to be, quite frankly, been poor recently. It's been poor advertisement of events, particularly when you've got casual visitors wanting to come along and experience some of the traders. You're either getting deafened in one ear or not able to find the food you want in the other. Now, being a lifelong Croydon resident and knowing what the offer is there, I'm likely to go back. It's those that are visiting Croydon for the day that are the ones most likely to be put off by that. I think it's positive, the work that you are going to do and are currently in the process of doing, but I think we need to look more about Box Park and what they are going to do to improve the lot for their traders, particularly given some of the reports that have been coming out with regard to some of the restrictions around alcohol sales, a lot of the events. We need to look at some of the diversification of that. We're seeing very much one genre of music dominating in there, and I don't think that is the only genre that is listened to by a Croydon crowd, particularly if Councillor Collins is to go there, for instance. I think we need to really get to the bottom of what the traders are impacting there, and it's positive to hear some of the work you're doing. One of my good friends actually looked at taking on a unit there originally as a sole trader, and the sheer costs of the rent and the service charges put him off going there because it would have taken 2 years for him to make a profit, and he's quite a well-known business. But I think that would be something we wish to see more of. Also, your district centres point, I noticed there was one district centre that I didn't see mentioned, which was Addiscombe. I think particularly given that we've had 2 bridge closures that were not at all the fault of the local businesses there, they've had it extremely tough and have been brilliant with their resilience throughout that. And I think I'd like to hear sort of a little bit more about what support has been getting offered to those businesses in Addiscombe and what support is coming on the way for them.
Yeah, well, a number of issues there. I think Box Park, I am concerned. We want it to be a success. I think, I think it is true. It's a new thing. It's very difficult to know what was going to work there and what isn't going to work. And I think that was going to be inevitable. Some businesses weren't going to survive there. I've had meetings with Roger. We've talked about that. We think we need diversification of events there. We want more marketing and promotion there to get people there at other times. I think it needs to be a destination for lunchtime as well as evening. I'd say to the traders themselves, they've got to, it's no good. I know they're struggling as well, but you're not going to sell stuff, £12, £15 for lunch. People want a cheaper offering. So I think there's a whole programme of stuff we're doing. I mean, talk about reducing some of the rent for businesses in there, giving them rate relief where they need it. So I think there's a package of support we're coming up with, but it is something that's going to require, I think, ongoing monitoring and working to make sure that we get the best we can out of Box Park, because in terms of events, and Paula was just saying as she was leaving, from an events point of view, it is a great space for events, and I'm talking to Roger about doing, a Winter Pride event in there, for instance. That would be something a bit different than, events that they've got on at the moment. So I think we need, I think, collectively come up with some more stuff that goes on there to support those businesses in Box Park. In terms of the district centres, yes, we've done walkabouts in the Addiscombe district centre. I think it's ripe for a bid there myself. I think we should be encouraging the businesses there to set up their own business improvement district. I think if you can have one in New Addington and Purley, I think Addiscombe is by far one of the more successful district centres actually that we have around Croydon. So I think we should really be pushing for that to happen. I have spoken to a lot of business. We've had, I think, 3 business surgery events now in Addiscombe to try and support the businesses in there. And the bridge closure has impacted businesses, and I'm very aware of that. And what I have said for any of those businesses, that we can't get into a position, I know there's people want a blanket business rate relief because of works going on, but it would be very difficult, I think, to do that, because you'd have to roll that out to every tier there was works across the town. And obviously some of those businesses don't, the co-op doesn't necessarily need business rate relief there. But some of those small independents, I think, we could look at discretionary business rate relief with them. And I think on a case-by-case basis, we're happy to support them. So if there's any of those businesses that can't make the surgery things, we're happy to send officers down to talk to them on an individual basis and see what support we can offer. And that can include things from the Enterprise Loan Fund to business advice and support, marketing support, or business rate relief to support those businesses.
Thank you, Chair.
One moment, I just realised I've just got moved standing orders. It's gone to allow this meeting to continue. You don't have to. Oh, is it 10 o'clock? Oh, yeah, because I've never agreed it.
There's never an end time. It does always feel like there's never an end time to scrutiny, but...
Though, Mark, I have to say you were the longest presentation we've had for quite a long time.
Well, I thought I'd cut it down.
Okay, I'll keep mine brief and just to one question then. As well as obviously working with small businesses and new employers, are you hopefully going to be working with Crystal Palace Football Club, who are obviously expanding and have confirmed if at the pre-planning application stage, if they do get approval from planning to extend the stadium, that they will be paying the London living wage to all of their staff. I hope that's on record for everyone. Will you be working with them, and hopefully the extra 700 jobs they're talking about, to make sure that there is some kind of buy-in, so that we make sure that they are jobs for our local people, and good jobs, whatever that happens to be, but living wage jobs.
Yeah, I think we've been working both with the club and with the foundation quite a lot. We have been pushing them hard on the London living wage, and I think it's something they should have done. They could have got great kudos for doing that some time ago. I don't know why they've dragged their heels a little bit, but I think we do want to push them in that direction. In terms of the jobs, I think the great thing about Croydon Works is that actually it's a very good service for employers. So actually we don't need to do that much pushing, because actually it is a very good way of getting the right people into those jobs. So we will be using, they will be using Croydon Works to do that, and making sure that as many of those jobs as possible go to local people.
Thank you, Chair. It's good to hear you sound upbeat about Westfield, Mark, but I think everybody in this room does regret the amount of time that has gone by since the redevelopment of the Whitgift Centre was first mooted. In the next 12 months before work really starts in earnest, are there any plans for trying to make use of the many empty shops that there already are in the Whitgift Centre and North End? And it seems to me that there's a new empty one every time I go up there, and it would be sad to see the centre of Croydon dwindle too much before the redevelopment starts.
Yes, well, actually, what wasn't in my presentation was, but the meanwhile use stuff we did in Portland Road, I think, was very, very successful, where we took some empty units and we did a competition for local businesses, and I think Paul and I sat down and we had presentations from about 30 start-up entrepreneurs from Croydon. Had some fantastic ideas. We took 3 of them, and in Portland Road, I think 2 of them certainly have been very successful there. And that has actually started to transform that area. So that meanwhile use is certainly something that I want to see in the town centre as well. We don't want empty shops in the town centre, so we will be working with those units where we can to try and get some meanwhile use in there. And I think there's plenty of businesses or small entrepreneurs that would be willing to take those. So we have a team of officers that will be looking at what we can do with those empty spaces. I'm talking to all the businesses in St George's Walk at the moment as well about what we can do in St George's Walk. The pedestrianisation of the High Street and the entrance to St George's Walk down here is something we can we're going to spruce up a bit to try and attract the businesses in there as well. So I think there's stuff we can do, but the meanwhile use stuff is definitely something I think that is proved to be very successful. And I would say if we were spending, and obviously money is tight, we don't have a lot of money, but that meanwhile use programme I think has been very, very successful. It gets spaces back into use. It gives small businesses an opportunity to test out what they're doing, but you know, and I just think it creates that innovation that we want, I think, in our town centres.
Last two questions. My last two questions are really similar to the ones I gave to Councillor Godfrey. You can have longer answers if you like, as long as it's not here till midnight. What do you see as the principal challenges or problems, apart from Westfield, to Croydon's economy over the next 2 to 3 years? And what achievements would you advise your successor to focus on? Thank you.
I think the next 2 to 3 years we're going to be in a bit of a transition stage. I think we're waiting. You know, Westfield will be on its way. There will be some excitement, I think, when they first start work. But you know, there will be a flurry of activity, and then people will be excited. But then it's going to take a couple of years for that to happen. So I think that is going to be a thing we have to manage. I do worry about our evening economy. I do think that a thriving town needs to have a good cultural offering and a good evening, nighttime and evening economy offer, and how we support that. I mean, it's not just Croydon. I think across London, we're seeing lots of pubs and evening venues and that across the whole of London. Although if you do go to Clapham on a Friday or Saturday night, it's actually very, very busy. In Croydon, there's a lot of people in Croydon up there. So there is something I think we need to do in Croydon to attract that. And it is about attracting businesses here, because people will relocate businesses here if there is enough offering. Body Shop sold Croydon as being surprisingly awesome with their stuff to sell, partly on Box Park, but part of the other stuff that was going on down here. But businesses, don't want just the cheap office space and good transport links. They do want to have a whole offering for us. But so we need to get the Fairfield halls up and running, I think, in Westfield. So there's a lot of stuff that's in transition, I think, in the next couple of years. But I think we need to, businesses are coming to Croydon, businesses are staying in Croydon, and businesses are doing very well in Croydon. So we can continue, I think, along that. I think Surrey Street area could actually become, a very vibrant area, not just for the market and as an evening offering as well in Surrey Street. I would like to see it being used more on a Sunday as well, and have more people in the town centre at a weekend. So I think there's those challenges that we need to address as we go forward. I've forgotten what else you asked me now. Well, I think I am very keen that the Good Employer Charter, I think, is something that we should be very proud of, and I think it's something we should be pushing. We have got 30-odd employers signed up, another 30 that want to do it. But that needs to be more than that. We should really go pushing and using our influence as a council to get the businesses to sign up to that. And they say it's not just good for the businesses, I think it's good for the whole town. But I think it's also good to create that business community, I think, in Croydon. I think that's the thing that we should be really trying. So I would say that is something worth focusing on, really pushing out the London Living Wage where we can. I think supporting the meanwhile use, particularly in our district centres. We don't want empty shops, and some of the big chains are closing down, so we'll have empty units there. We need to be able to use those. So I think that meanwhile use, if there was money for that, I would say that would be where we get our biggest bang for our buck, basically, in supporting the local economy. Yeah.
I don't think there are any more questions. Can I say, Mark, on behalf of the committee, thank you for coming along and being the last person tonight. So you've got the last slot. But thank you for the detailed presentation and the answers. But also, as we know, it's also your last meeting as the Cabinet member coming for Q&A. For reasons I still don't really understand, you've been asked to step down for the last couple of months, which I think is a crying shame, personally. But I do want to put it on record. I think the committee's thanks for your engagement with this committee and for coming along, not just to your Q&A sessions, but to other sessions where necessary. So I'd just like to put a vote of thanks to the committee to say thank you for Mark for his engagement on this in scrutiny. Thank you. We've just got a final agenda item, which is the work plan for next year. We've just got one more. In theory, we've got 2 more meetings. We've got community safety and Q&A, effectively with Hamida Ali, and then whether we actually have a final meeting will depend on whether any urgent item really comes up. Devolution's on the list. I'm not entirely certain that that will stay. But otherwise, thank you everyone for your detailed contributions tonight.